The issue is that like voting is a messy system, right? Like it's the best system that we have for solving like group issues, but it's still like sticky. I mean, you get 6 people in a room and you're trying to order like Chinese food or pizza and you having that argument. It's really simple. Everyone just says, I want Chinese food or I want pizza, and you solve the problem, right? And it feels really visceral and obvious and basic. But when you start to scale it up, it becomes like, or it can feel like it's clunky. It kind of is clunky because, I mean, even like 100 people on voting on something needs more cohesion than that. When you scale it up to like the level of a country where you have millions of people voting on a topic, on elected officials, on any of that, it's really easy to, you suddenly start feeling like, oh, my vote doesn't matter, right? There's lots of people don't vote because they feel like, oh, my vote doesn't matter, which is nonsense. Of course your vote matters. The difficulty is that people don't like grasp why their vote matters, I think, which is understandable because it's a complicated fucking system, right? Like you get mired down in this thing where the idea is like, well, if 3 million people vote this way and 4 million people vote this way, my one vote isn't going to save the result, which is like true. Your one vote is not going to equal like a difference if there's a million people difference. And the common argument goes that, okay, sure, but like 2 million people didn't vote. And if those 2 million people had voted, you might get a very different result. But every individual person has to make the choice to vote. And you just need to persuade all 2 million of them to make that choice individually. And like, that is true, but it also really misses the point. There's not even close to the point. Because yes, 2 million people who don't vote is a difference. And yes, everyone should vote for the system to be working at capacity and to be working properly. But the actual issue on the baseline is that if you don't vote, whether the person, like, whoever wins, if you don't vote, whoever wins has no fucking reason to listen to you. It doesn't matter what you think, because when the next vote comes around, the next election, local, national, doesn't really matter, the next time that person is up for election, they know that you didn't vote, so they know that between now and then, they don't have to pay any attention to you. And it's pretty simple. We do extensive polling nationally, multiple organisations do this, but also the electoral register exists, and to make sure that you are voting in the right constituency, they will check your name and address as you arrive at a polling station. So even though the way you vote is private, whether or not you vote kind of isn't. Let's take an example of how this literally plays out and has played out over the last few years in the real world, right? People aged 18 to 24 are notorious for turning out in appallingly low numbers at election time, right? In Britain, young people don't vote, is the perception. Now, lots of young people do vote, obviously. I know loads of young people who vote. Lots of people know that. But as a percentage of the young people in the country, they can see how many of them are registered to vote, which is like less than should be, because it should be everyone. And the amount of people who are registered to vote, not everyone turns up. So you get something, I don't have the exact number off the top of my head, but something like 30% of people in the 18 to 24 bracket actually turn up to vote come an election. This tells the powers that be, both on the local level, where you can get more specific data, and on the national level, that if you're worried about getting re-elected, the group you really don't have to worry about winning over is 18 to 24-year-olds, right? Because they aren't a bulk of your votes, they aren't a bulk of your opponent's votes, so you don't need to win them over, which means you can basically ignore them, right? The like palpable, obvious conclusion to that is, well, we need to cut something. Why don't we make cuts against the people who aren't voting for us or voting at all anyway? Which is where you get tuition fee rises because students don't vote, young people going into university don't vote, 18-year-olds, they just don't vote. If 18-year-olds don't vote, who cares? We aren't going to lose an election because we put tuition fees up. The other palpable, really visceral one lately is the fact that 18 to 24-year-olds have a lower minimum wage than people 25 and up, which is infuriating if you are between 18 and 24, because like, great, you're an adult, but you still don't earn the highest minimum wage possible. You got to get to 25, another 7 years before you're earning what actual adults, it feels like, are actually earning at a minimum wage, right? That really hurts 18 to 24-year-olds. Lots of 18 to 24-year-olds are going to be really pissed off about that as a policy decision, but they can make that because they don't expect 18 to 24-year-olds to vote. Now, this is like a national level example, but this same basic principle applies all the way down to as local a level as possible. In fact, it gets more important there because you, as an individual, make up a bigger percentage of people voting in your local constituency than you do on a national level. So if you want your local MP to listen to you, which you should, and if you want your city councillors to listen to you, which you should, because they will both be making decisions that affect you, either they're representing you or they're deciding how the city funds itself, and all the other things that those people do, you need to turn up to vote, because they can see that you didn't vote, and so why should they care what you think? It's that simple. And in fact, if you do vote and then your candidate loses, it's even more important then that you voted, because you can let that person who is now in power know, hey, I vote and I didn't vote for you last time. This is what I want. You want my vote next time? You're going to have to represent me and this thing that I and my group want and this thing that I and my age group want. It's actually even more important to have voted when the person you would prefer loses, because then they have a reason to want you to vote for the current candidate next time. It's that simple, really. You don't vote, no one has to listen to you.